Hi everyone, Coyote Montana here. Now, if any of you actually remember the last two videos when I talk about the classic shows and movies being all restored and remastered, the first one when I talked about what does restored and remastered means and the comparison on the original and the remastered version, we know that film restoration is like cleaning the film up and stuff by restoring it using a lot of high techs and stuff and everything. But there is a classic show from 1984 that I used to watch back then when I was a kid. Yes, Thomas the Tank Engine. I actually do remember the show when I was a kid because I actually had some VHS and DVDs of every compilation of episode from seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Yeah, and believe me, this toy that I have here, I actually have this for years ever since I was a kid, and I actually never got rid of it because my parents know how valuable this is. So, here's the thing you probably might know. Now, ever since years ago, when Hit Entertainment had the rights with Thomas and Friends, that's when they restored the 3 seasons, of course. But also, I want to give a special shout out to the two YouTubers who actually talked about this, and I want to give a special shout out to the Unlucky Tug and James is here for doing these. So you might be wondering about this, and it's about why the restored version of Thomas is terrible. Well, this is something you might know. You see, when they actually first restored Thomas, they actually made the colors better, but it has black and white dots. But there's also like some alternate takes, color grading, and everything that's actually on there. And even worse, replace a scene with an outtake. So yeah, that's how you actually know. But there's also some rails that were actually used that hasn't been used because they were used from the old masters. Which means that either the film might be damaged or something, which means they can't rescan it, which is stupid. So, I'm actually going to look at the episodes that are actually on here, so I'm actually going to play it at a speed. And it's from this one video, so I can actually point them out. So it actually shows a comparison on side-by-sides, of course. Let me just get this going so you can take a look. Now, so on the left is the original masters, and on the side is the restored version. Now, I actually do note that in the restored version, the cropping is actually a bit zoomed out, so you'll probably see everything. But there's actually something you might know. And I want to give a special shout out to GWR Studios, who I wish would continue, did these videos that shows a lot of goofs. And what are the goofs are? Example, camera equipment, everything. You can actually see them in the top left, top right, even on the top, of course. And that's really the worst. And get this, on the very first episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, which is Thomas and Gordon, aka US Thomas Gets Tricked, in the viaduct scene, you can see the edge of the set. I mean, seriously. That's the worst thing ever. Of course, but get this. When you actually see the models actually going to the certain spots, and you also notice that you don't see anything pulling behind them. Like an example, in Thomas and Gordon, you probably can see that Gordon isn't actually pulling any coaches behind him. And same thing with Thomas and any other engines too. And the one thing I actually do know is that in the Sad Story Henry, for the steam, it actually goes in reverse. Of course. And there are some different takes, like Thomas's smiling face. Of course. So everything was from the old masters. And I'm actually talking about this because I'm actually starting off with season 1. And there are some also scenes that are actually a bit longer and all of that. And also different changes too. And believe me, there's they're like everything, but there's one thing that I actually noticed. There's actually some fading transitions too. Oh, add. And there's some fade additions to avoid ghosting too. Yeah, so everything's like all zoomed out and all of everything. But get this. The first season of Thomas only had one perfect complete episode, and it's called Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow. That's the only one episode that's actually fully reconstructed. No changes, no anything, of course. And also, get this, there's also scenes that were never shown, like in the restored version, we don't see the scene of Sir Topham Hatt putting his hat on when he was about to go see James, Gordon, and Henry at Titmichette's. Yeah, so there's actually some scenes that are actually been noticing that are missing too. And here's one that I noticed, and it's the color grading in Percy Runs Away. The color grading looks terrible because it feels like it's a lot dark. On the original Masters, it looks so perfect. You can see everything. Really good. And get this, on Henry's special call, there's actually a scene that was actually removed with an outtake. In the original, it shows Henry pulling up to the side where that building is at, and Edward goes to take the train. But get this, in the restored version, they've replaced the scene with an outtake. Seriously, an outtake? I mean, who wants to see that, even though it's kind of a bit funny? And as for the Flying Kipper episode, there's something that was actually horrible, and it's the cropping. They've actually made the scan too low, and you can't even see much on the top. And you're like seeing everything in the bottom, like in the beginning of the journey. I mean, seriously. It looks terrible. I mean, seriously. What are we, like, looking at in the restored version? The ground or Henry? Yeah. And there's also scenes that had no fading transitions, like whistles and sneezes. And a lot of other parts too, like the fading in Taupe in the episode where Toby made his appearance. And yeah, that's all the things I know. But get this, on Down the Mine episode, get this. It actually shows the model Thomas looks like that because that was his style from the pilot episode. So this could mean that later this year, when it's the 40th anniversary of Thomas and Friends, they'll actually reveal the pilot episode. Can't wait to see it. Of course. So I believe what they actually said. So season 1 was a complete mess. They had a lot of scenes that are missing scenes that has to be used from the original Masters. I mean, I can't believe that they actually used the outtake in Henry's special call, the color grading in Percy Runs Away, and the horrible cropping in the Flying Kipper. Seriously, awful. But only one perfect reconstructed episode was the only one that's been perfect. And now for the second season, there's only 6 perfect reconstructed episodes, and also less of them with the original Masters. So like Double Trouble, that's one of them, of course. And what else? Just let me take my time to find out which episodes they are. That actually has the originals, of course. So Saves from Scrap is perfectly done. And there's Old Iron. And get this, for Old Iron, there's the fading that was missing. And get this, when it shows the scene of Sir Topham Hatt, and the actual originals version, you can actually see the sky behind him. But in the remastered version, it looks like a black void. Kind of looks... Oh, it actually looks like something that's just nothing there. It's like the black void or something. Because this is actually from an outtake too. Yeah. Sound of the people out there. and the scene of Percy in that other episode about the signal was also gone too. Seriously, ridiculous. And there's another advertisement, of course. And the other episode, Dux takes charge. This one was completely reconstructed, so that's 3 in a row for the second season. And there's also a scene when it shows Percy's eyes going down and it stopped. The frame stopped for some reason, of course. And also Percy takes the plunge. The episode where Bill and Ben made their first appearance, Bill and Ben left before we hear the sound of the chuffing. That was out of sync too. So there's actually some parts that were actually out of sync. Of course. And there's some old masters from Pop Goes the Diesel, my favorite episode of all, because when Diesel growls like this, me and my buddy Wolfie loves laugh our butts off on that. But Dirty Work was also another episode that's completely restructured, and it was perfect. Of course, and there's also some parts that are actually a bit faster and stuff. But, yeah. But get this, on the episode where Donald and Douglas made their very first appearance, they didn't even have their nameplates in the beginnings, but in the original, they actually covered the faceplates with some editing and stuff. But in the remastered version, you can actually see it. Same thing in the cropping. You can't see the nameplate in the original, in the first cropping, but in the remastered version, you can actually see it. Yeah. And the distribution something was also another episode that's fully reconstructed, so that's 5. So yeah, so there's actually some scenes that are actually faster and stuff and everything, but get this. On the episode, The Diesel, where Boko made his very first appearance, on that episode, when we see Bill and Ben going away to get some more cars, you can see hands at the top left, at the top of the screen. You can actually see them pulling the wires. You see, on that other episode when Thomas in the trucks, you can actually see a hand that actually appears fast. And there's actually one hand that's actually appeared in the 3rd season. But anyways, and I believe that Wrong Road was actually the one episode that was perfectly reconstructed. So that's only 6 episodes of season 2 that were perfectly reconstructed. Also, for the episode about the ghost that Percy did, on the restored version, in the original, it was all daytime. But the color grading on the restored version looks like crap because it's all dark and it's making it like nighttime. Seriously. Yeah, so season 6 actually did pretty good. 6 reconstructed episodes and less scenes of the original masters, of course. And as for season 3, on the first one, which is A Scar for Percy, the color grading looks pretty nice on the restored version, making it all blue for the winter. And stuff. But there were only 3 reconstructed episodes on the 3rd season, but season 3 actually had a little bit of this because of the canal and everything. Of course. But also, there's some face changes too, like when Thomas gets bumped, it shows Bertie with a sad face in the original, but in the restored version, but in the original, he's smiling. That's how it should be, actual scenes. And same thing with Thomas, Percy, and the dragon. When in the original, we can see Thomas has his eyes closed, but in the original, you can see that he's awake. Also, there's also some different eye movements too, because in the original, it actually had the actual eye movements. And there's also this one episode with James, and it actually shows an outtake of this one car that was being derailed, but in the original it doesn't, so they actually got the right one. Sorry, I'm almost out of breath. But on this episode called Trust Thomas, the camera was looking terrible. It actually keeps moving like this. Yeah, so let me just see if there's one of the perfect reconstructed episodes. And that episode I mentioned about with Mavis. Oh yes. So like I said, it has the hand on there. And so Edward, Trevor, and the let me look at it again. Edward, Trevor, and the Really Useful Party is one episode that's fully reconstructed. So that's one episode. That's one of them so far, in on there. And as for James Go Buzz Buzz, the scene of the two passengers were lost too. But the bee actually looks good and animated. But there's something I actually noticed. In Gordon, the Famous Visitor, along with James Goes Buzz Buzz and Oliver Owns Up, in the original, the filming was actually a bit fast, but on the remastered version, it actually goes into a normal speed, like as the original film. Of course, so I think the regular speed on there on the restored version looks perfect. I like it. I mean, because for the speed version on the original, that's actually used for those sing-alongs. And there's that one episode with Bill and Ben, which is one good turn. It actually showed when it goes to the scene where we see Boko. In the original, we can see one of the twins going by, and Boko was sitting there. But in the remastered, it goes like that before one of them appears. So that one was terrible. But for Tender Engines, that's another episode that's fully reconstructed. And yeah, like I said, Oliver, what's up? It actually goes from Fairy Train scenes and everything. But get this, the one episode that has the worst editing of all, which is Bulgy. It has the fading transitions on the restored version goes early. In the remastered version, it actually goes a bit later, of course, because in the original, we actually see one of the trains go off screen first before the fading. So that was way better. So the editor could have been like drunk or something by doing this. Yeah, the editing on these are just terrible. Terrible, of course. But the one last episode that was actually perfectly reconstructed would be Percy, James, and the... Let me look at this again. Percy, James, and the Fruitful Day. So there was only 3 episodes of season 3 that are fully reconstructed. But the last episode was actually this close to be fully reconstructed. But at least the best thing about season 3 is the colors. The colors look so nice. And it looks amazing. Yeah, so that's how I actually notice. But also, I want to say this to GWR Studios about those outtakes. They said that they're goofs. GWR Studios, if you're hearing this, the one with Henry bumping into the building and going off screen and then reappearing, that's not actually, it's like less of a goof but not actually a goof, it's actually an outtake. Same thing with some other ones too, so those don't count as goofs. Yeah, but overall, the original, the restored version of Thomas isn't that great. I mean, some of that footage was lost. I mean, they could have actually restored it a lot later. Like many years later, to have some better color federations and stuff, and original cropping too. I mean, look at the other movie studios. Look at the Three Stooges. Going with the actual good old cropping, and it's remastered. Sailor Moon is remastered, along with Dragon Ball, Gumby, the classic Hanna-Barbera shows, old movies, etc. They're all the colors look so perfect, and they're also in their original cropping. But Hit Entertainment, you did a terrible job on restoring Thomas. I mean, I actually didn't know that some of the other Thomas specials had the on Blu-ray and DVD had the Universal logo on the side, and even the last one, when Thomas goes around the world. That one was released by Universal, and the Hit Entertainment logo isn't on there anymore. So, I think Universal should actually restore Thomas, but a lot better. By rescanning all the episodes of the reissues that they've done, by rescanning them all and get them in the perfect color grading and back to the original cropping. So, Universal, if you can hear this, can you try to restore Thomas and Friends? It would be great. To try to rescan all the episodes from seasons 1, 2, and 3 by rescanning them all with new, better color gradings and back to the original cropping too, because we don't want to see any studio equipment in the top left, the top right, and on the top and everywhere. Please, Universal, please restore Thomas and Friends. Hopefully in the future, so we'll have better colors and everything, and get rid of all the outtakes on there, here, and everything. Please make them all originals, please. So yeah, so that's everything to know about the restored version of Thomas the Tank Engine seasons 1 through 3. Would have been great if they would just restore them years later, but I hope Universal can do this, because Universal actually did release some Thomas and Friends DVDs with Head Entertainment, just like how Lionsgate did. But please, Universal, please restore Thomas in the better way, new color grading, and back to the original cropping, original scenes that were from the original masters to make them look better. Please, Universal, and thank you. So that's about it. So I'll put the link of the videos from those YouTubers in the link down below. And those 3 videos would be every difference in the restored Thomas episodes from the Unlucky Tug, and 2 videos from James is Here, which is the restored Thomas and Friends episode Suck, and the restored Thomas and Friends episodes are embarrassing. So I'll put those videos in the link down below, everyone. But overall, ever since when I've watched the original versions of the episodes, they were better. They were way better, and I just hope someday Universal would do a better restoration of Thomas and Friends with all the original scenes and stuff. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like, send some comments, and hit the bell button for brand new videos, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, everyone.